Hi, my name is Andrew Kinnear, and I'm the founder of Freebruary. Thanks for joining us for this limited interview series with entrepreneurs from across Canada. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, my name is Michelle Tirmandi, and I'm the co-founder of Kite.
Hi, I'm Claudia Marion, and I'm the other co-founder of Kite.
It's great to have you guys here. Thanks for doing this. Let me start with, where are you two? So Claudia, you guys are both at home, but where are you located?
We're in Toronto. Michelle and I are both in Toronto. We're about a half an hour away from each other. Pretty much, North Toronto and East Toronto.
Yeah.
And is that where you manufacture your products as well?
No, we actually manufacture products in the burbs,
In the suburbs
outside of Toronto. Yeah.
Awesome. So tell me a bit about Kite, the product, the brand.
Sure. So Kite is a sparkling adaptogenic tea. So what we do is if you don't know what adaptogens are, I'll start with that first. So adaptogens are a unique class of healing herbs or plants, and they help people to adapt to stress and sort of bring more inner balance into the world. So they help you modulate, everything that's going on in the world. And so what we do is we actually take the whole plant botanicals and steep it into a very concentrated tea infusion, and then we carbonate, and that's what you get.
So for someone who's had an iced tea in a can, tell me how this is going to be different than that. Flavor wise, texture, benefits?
Well, that's a great question. Benefits, I'll let Michelle speak to benefits, but flavor wise, you haven't tasted anything like Kite. We actually, most products in the market are, well, almost every product on the market except for Kite is made with a lot of concentrates. Kite would be made more like kombucha, which is typically made with tea, added sugar, and then it ferments. We don't do the fermentation end of that. We actually we use whole, as Michelle said, whole plant botanicals, and we steep them we do an overnight steep, a 12-hour steep, which is a very strong cup of tea, really. And we add our organic extracts. That's the only extract we're talking about, and they're pure organic extracts to our product, and we carbonate. So Kite is completely different than anything you'd have ever tried, and you get these nuances that you would get like in your cup of tea, just very floral botanical nuances, and you just can't, you just can't make that outside of the way we make it. So very refreshing. When we first started, some folks were like, "Oh, is this like more like a bubbly or something, or LaCroix?" Because it can look like that. It's sugar free. It's also, we don't use any preservatives or anything, so it can look a little bit like that. It's a very light, sparkling, low level color in a cup. And without the sugar, people want to kind of nail it and say, hey, this is more like a sparkling water, but or functional sparkling water, but it's really not. It is a tea, like we do brew. So I'll let Michelle speak to the
Awesome.
efficacy of it.
Yeah, so because we're steeping, just picking up where Claudia left off, because we're steeping for 12 hours, we're actually extracting all of the goodness of the plant. So whether that's minerals or amino acids and the energetics of the plant. So sort of all that plant goodness we talk about, or plant wisdom. And then that's sort of where the efficacy comes in, because we're steeping the real organic plants for 12 hours. Just as if you can imagine taking a cup of tea and creating your own infusion, putting it in the fridge overnight or leaving it on the counter overnight, you're really going to draw out a lot more from the plants than if you were to just sort of dip a tea bag in and pull it out. So not only is there a lot of flavor, there's also that, energetic part of it that really adds to the function. If you look at our teas, you can see they're all named something different. So this one is Rise, Moringa, Lemon, and it corresponds to the botanicals that are present. This one is Align, Tulsi, Hibiscus, and then Claudia has Unwind, our Ashwagandha Orange, which is sort of our trendy bestseller over there.
Okay, so the 3 SKUs, and they sound delicious. They sound really great. I'm one of those people who used to drink, a can of Nestea iced tea in high school every single day. It was sugar, and because I didn't like Coke, so that was my go-to vice, and it was terrible for me. Like, what a terrible thing to drink all that sugar. But this sounds really interesting. Tell me a bit about the genesis of the Kite brand. So that the packaging is gorgeous, but when I think of Kite, I think of like high flying. It takes me in a certain kind of brand direction, and I have a bit of a background in marketing, so I'm understanding like where things are going. But tell me, like, how did you land on Kite, and what is it supposed to mean, and what do your customers tell you about it?
We'll let Claudia take that one because she's sort of the beginning of the kite story.
Okay.
Yeah, so Kite is really it's a metaphor, right? You are the kite, and all of those, all of that stress and the imbalance in your life is the string. And so, in drinking your Kite, we're trying to help you unwind unwind the string of the kite and let your kite soar and fly, finding balance among the elements and such. So really very much a metaphor. Some people think high as a kite. It's not that at all. It's really about being, one with the elements and finding your balance and your stride naturally.
It seems like, set up perfectly though too, to have like a secondary line that's full of all the CBD and all those things, because that's a huge industry too. Have you guys thought about going in that direction at all, or is that not part of the plan?
It's funny you ask. It's actually where we began. So we began, I was like, just the stressors in life. Michelle, I have 4 kids. Michelle has now 2 children, but back then 1, and just the normal day-to-day stressors and stuff. And I have a child that has ADHD. Michelle, everyone has anxiety. Michelle's a bit of anxiety. Who doesn't these days, especially? And so we were looking, Michelle and I were looking toward CBD before anybody knew what CBD was, to kind of just naturally treat something between the anxiety and the ADHD and the inability for my son to focus. So we were looking at, we named the business Kite based on our metaphor as we spoke on, but our original plan was to roll out with CBD, and then we realized that what was out there was a very, very gray market filled with a lot of snake oil salespersons. And so we stepped back from that and thought, well, that we can look at the whole botanical and the whole functional botanical community. From adaptogens to nervines, nootropics. So we're really looking into that space, but absolutely, we will go back there, but we really want to make sure that we're not associated with something that is like in such a gray space. That's for sure.
There's a lot of science, and especially big words that you just mentioned there. Do you see Kite as a mainstream CPG product on the shelf next to the waters and the teas that you mentioned in grocery? Or is this like starting in health food? Is this a health food product? Like, can you tell me about the category that you guys see yourselves in, and then where maybe your customer is pulling you? Because often those are different.
So it's a great question again, Andrew. Like, we're at the moment, we're slotted into functional botanicals. If you'd asked that question 2 years ago, we would have absolutely said, that we were very much, natural product, natural, chain health food stores and the Whole Foods of the world. But through the pandemic has grown leaps and bounds for the interest that the public in general, and that's the mass market public, has in functional food and beverages. So we're actually seeing what we thought would be a creep into like the general grocery aisles to be absolutely more enhanced. Like, it's people are starting, it's very tip of the iceberg still, but I think adaptogens, especially because they do cover our functional mushrooms. So you've got 2 plays here. You've got the fungi, which are trending, as you know, at the moment, but you've also got the adaptogenic roots and plants. And like, as Michelle said before, not everything is an adaptogen. So but as this group, and as you're hearing, a year ago, the functional mushroom folks weren't calling their products adaptogens. Some of them are, like the reishi, absolutely, and chaga. So we're seeing the amplification of it from this like broader community, absolutely. And so I do think it will be more general grocery as part of a functional set, which can of course include your prebiotic sodas, probiotic, and and adaptogens, and a whole lot more. Actually, I know I'm leaving out loads, but it's the numbers that are coming into the space at the moment, and the growth we've just seen in the past year, let alone the past 2 years, is phenomenal. So it will come through. I mean, Goop has been talking about it for years, but that's absolutely been amplified by other news pickups since then.
Let me ask you guys a bit of more of a B2B question, a business question of your actual journey as entrepreneurs. Is there anything that you wish somebody had told you before you started this business? And
Michelle and I are laughing. Oh my gosh, beverage is tough.
Beverage is really expensive to ship. That's a really important factor.
Expensive to ship, and I don't know. I have like a business that does cookies and bars, and we have like 23 ingredients in a cookie, and it really seems easy compared to putting 2 ingredients into a can and getting it out the door. The volumes in beverage, you can't just that, you can do a skid or 2 skids, maybe 3, and then you get to do a lot of those every month and stuff, but just the manpower that it takes to organize the structures that support that is crazy. So the ideal is to do large runs, 100,000 liters and such, but that's a big scale up, and doesn't really fit into a startup profile, because you're talking, $250,000. So there's not really, it's a very tough industry, because you're either really small, the scale up just seems impossible. Like it's a huge barrier. I would warn people, it's a huge barrier to entry. Like once you understand it, you're like, wow, this is just like a brave new world. It's a tough one.
That barrier must keep out competitors though as well. Like I found in the ice cream business, scaling up, you're either doing small batches and you're working like crazy, or you're finding a co-packer who can do, as you say, like 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 liters of mix. And then you have all this inventory, right? You have finished inventory that's sitting there, and it has a date. And if you don't have the velocity at shelf, now you're fighting that battle, because you might have blown cash flow to get this inventory, and if it doesn't move, then you're sort of sitting there with this money tied up. And so it's understandable. I mean, in the beverage industry, I've heard a few people talk about just the cans, like getting aluminum can be a challenge. Are you guys facing those kind of like more global supply chain issues as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely with our cans and just the costs going up, and constantly trying to source better lower cost. Is that possible or not? It's very hard also in beverage. I didn't mention to get, when I order something, having a box printed, that's just table stakes. I expect to get a box or a bag printed or a label printed. And when it comes to beverage, in order to actually give you back, a few cents. So it's more than a few cents. It's like, can be 20-30% of the cost of your can, of your packaging can be that extra label, like your sleeve and such, on top of the can. So once you can go into printed, which takes volume, so you're talking like 3 truckloads of printed cans versus like a few skids of cans with labels. So there's again, it goes back to that, it's just so volume driven, the beverage industry.
Do you map that all out to know, like, okay, when we hit this level, we can start printing our own cans. When we hit this level, we can start warehousing our own, or whatever it is?
I wish, because at the moment, we just got word the other day that the folks who, the larger companies who would typically do printed cans, whereas they used to say, a minimum order of like a truckload per SKU, a lot of them have flipped it to 3 truckloads per SKU, and we have different SKUs in the US and Canada, so that's 6, and then you're like 6 truckloads for it's 18 basically for 3 SKUs. 18 truckloads of cans, which is a huge amount, and you have to think about storage of that, like the inventorization of that. It's just like, I mean, there's no comparison in like me making bars and cookies and stuff and getting the packaging in. 3 skids will last me like 40,000 bags for packaging. Product would last me about 2 months, and it's not tough to store. Whereas like again, imagine or like 18 skids is basically a whole reefer truck full of 18 trucks that's times 18 skids, that's like a massive, it's a warehouse in itself just to store your inventory. So the scale up is phenomenal in this space. So we are still sleeving. We don't want to, but it's just, it's a big jump to the next level.
It reminds me of something Michelle said, which was, it's heavy to ship. So it takes up space because it's air. When you haven't filled the can yet, you need all that warehouse space. It's a big empty can. You got to make sure they don't get dented or messed up. And then once you do fill the can, they're the same size, but now they're heavy. So it's like it compounds the challenges. So
you mentioned, Andrew, the barrier to entry too. It's just, I think people actually will go into beverage because especially the type that we're doing, not the form factor exactly, but just pasteurized or longer life, and they go into ambient and they think, oh well, because you're in cold chain, like you're cold chain frozen, that would scare most people off. But when you go into ambient, you've got a bit of a longer shelf life, and it can be at any temperature. It's like, okay, welcome into this beverage space. It doesn't seem so scary, and then when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, it really is shocking.
Tell me about what's next in 2022 for you guys.
Tackling the problems we just talked about.
So we have quite a lot. I don't know what to say because we haven't really talked about what we're sort of revealing just yet. But
don't tell me any secrets, but tell me what you're excited about.
We're excited because we have a lot of new product development sort of up our sleeve, and we're working on it. And what we're excited to do is sort of take the Kite umbrella that's only 3 SKUs and really elongate it horizontally into different functions and flavors. Based on what Claudia sort of nodded to, the nootropics and the fungi and the different botanicals and mushrooms and their functions. So we're really playing sort of secretly on the side with a bunch of different formulations, which is really where Claudia and I, that's where we like to play. That's the fun part.
Like as far as R&D, you like doing the experimentation.
Exactly. We're both really big into tea and plants, and I know that both of us are drinking like liters and liters of different functional teas all day. Yeah, same here. And so we're really, really excited about that. And then also working in some more form factors as well in terms of, same plant wisdom, bringing the plant wisdom and the fungi wisdom. I guess we have to really work on our tagline, but so we have quite a bit up our sleeve. It's just a matter of rolling it out into the real world.
That's amazing. It sounds like a lot of things, a lot of moving parts.
Absolutely. We're also working a little bit on, and a nod to what you said earlier about the knowledge of what we're selling and adaptogens in this space. There is a lot of education that is needed, and we are working on our packaging, our actual look, the look of Kite, as at the moment. it's minimally, it's brand forward and minimally educational. So we're working on that as well, because the what is definitely it's got to bump a bit more than it is. Yeah, it's not a chocolate chip cookie. People want to know.
Yeah, they have to understand what they're consuming, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So there's an educational component. Last question, easiest one. When people ask you, where can I get this amazing drink? What do you typically tell them? Where do you send people? And I heard you mention the US. So people in Canada, where should people in Canada get Kite?
I'll sort of list off a couple of our biggest sort of stores where I normally say, of course, you can always go to our website at drinkkite.com. We're also available on Amazon Prime, well.ca. In the West Coast, we're big at Nature's Fair, Choices, Whole Foods, and what am I missing, Claudia? Lots of different health food stores as well.
Great.
Yeah. And I mean, we're very well at the moment. We've got a deal on a Summerhill Market along with our friends at BioRaw, but we're fairly well available across on Ontario and into Quebec at Rochelle Berry, working on building out Quebec much more, and health food stores all over Canada, really. And we have a great following out in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, the East Coast. But yeah, it's we started very much because of the pandemic. We were onboarded faster out on the West Coast. Our distributor out there got going right away, whereas there was about an 8-month delay toward hitting, having feet on the streets and easily available through distribution in Ontario and on the East Coast. But we have that now, so we do have greater representation still out west, but it's catching up fast.
Awesome. It's been great chatting with you guys. Having you as part of Freebruary is great, and I hope that your brand does well in 2022 and beyond. It was really great to have you.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
And cheers to Freebruary.
Cheers.
You're such a chill, cool interviewer, Andrew.
Yeah. I feel wrapped in a warm hug. I felt like
that was
not scary at all.